All right.
Okay, and 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Mormonish. I'm Rebecca.
And I'm Landon.
And we have a very exciting guest in the house today. We have our friend Monique. We've been trying to schedule this for so long, and we are so happy to find her here with us today. So we have a very interesting story around how we even ever ran into Monique. And Landon, you can probably do a better job than I can. Why don't you tell this fascinating story?
Yeah, so we actually met Monique. She was performing at a dinner theater that she performs in. It's called the Salty Dinner Theater. We've been to it a couple times, but she actually had written the production that we went to see. We didn't know that at the time, but we went to see her, and she was a fabulous singer, wonderful singer, and the production was really fun. And at the end of the production, we went out, and the cast kind of comes out and takes pictures with you. And we just got talking to her, and it was so much fun to talk to her. We had a good time talking to her, and at the end of the show, and then we took pictures with her and left. And so the next day I got on Facebook to kind of put some notes on the Salty Dinner Theater and say, oh, we really enjoyed the production. And I ran into her Facebook link, and I went to her and I said, oh, there's the gal we talked to last night. And so
and being the stalker
I am.
I'm into Facebook stalking. Like, it's helpful.
Exactly. Yeah, being the stalker that you are. Of course, I'm really not one to talk because it seems like everyone we have on, I met on Reddit somewhere. So
you meet on Reddit, I stalk on Facebook. Yeah.
It's fine. We divide and conquer and get awesome guests.
I'm really glad that you did, Landon.
Yes.
That's right.
So I saw her profile. I went to it and I started reading up on her, who she was. And on there, I saw several comments that kind of made me think, is she an ex-Mormon? Or it sounds like she's Mormon, then it kind of sounds like she's not Mormon. So I just messaged her and said, hey, it's me from last night. I've really enjoyed the show. And she said, thank you. And I said, do you mind if I ask you a question? And she said, no. And I said, are you by any chance post-Mormon or ex-Mormon? And she said, I'm actually just left. And I went, I thought so. So then I told her about our book club and said, you ought to join. And it turns out that she works at the same place Tom does. So they got talking, and we just got talking. And eventually, I know you went out for brunch we went dancing at the New Year's Gala for the
Thrive Gala.
And she's a great dancer. Not only can she sing, she can dance. She danced the whole night long.
I'm so glad I tricked you.
This episode of Mormonish is a musical. We're gonna No, it was really, I mean, I think we just connected even talking at the theater, and then Landon, of course, goes out on a limb and messages and asks those questions. But we're so glad he did, because we just really have a lot of fun with you and your husband, and it's just awesome. So we were very excited to be able to get her on the program. And so I'm going to read her bio very quickly, and then we will dive in, because you guys are going to love Monique as much as we do. So I will start out by saying this is Dr. Monique. Yes, I said doctor. Dr. Monique has worked as a humanitarian and human rights activist for nearly 20 years. Her research and service focus has been on human trafficking and gender socioeconomic inequality issues. She has a rich background working in nonprofits as a project and accounts manager, director, fundraiser, community outreach manager, homeless outreach worker, and trainer. Her activism has taken her to Kenya and Guatemala, where she conducted field research and focused on educational development. She is a professional performer and journalist, having worked as a television panelist on a nationally syndicated talk show, as well as written for various publications. She completed a PhD in human science with a specialization in transformative social change, and currently works as a professor of sociology and communications at UVU and Salt Lake Community College. So now you can see why we wanted her on the show. Welcome, Monique.
Yes, you're so good for my imposter syndrome. You make me feel cool. Thank you.
Well, no, I know what imposter syndrome is, but you don't need to have it, because you're the real deal. So that's right. So I guess our first question for you, Monique, is just to we read a little bit about your professional background, but just tell us about you, where you grew up, who you are, your family. Just tell us whatever you'd like to talk about.
Sure. I moved to Utah when I was 7. I was born in the church. Both of my parents were converts. Born in California. My parents divorced when I was 7, came here, and then, lived here through my undergrad, met my husband at a singles ward, linger longer, intermingle.
A singles ward success story.
Yes. And we married and we lived here for a bit and moved around the country quite a bit for job advancement and things like that, and then ended up back here. And I have 4 little nuggets, 2 girls, 2 boys. We live in Highland, Utah, and that's my bio. I don't know what else there is.
There it is. She's so
Netflix
modest.
and soft socks and heaters and tea.
And tea. Wow, it's almost like a Tinder profile. There you go.
There you go.
So you're a professor at UVU, yet you also look, my set's falling apart. You're a professor at UVU, yet you also you're involved in the theater world. That's really exciting.
Yeah, when I was younger, I was trying to be a famous superstar. Clearly, I didn't make it, I'm fine with it now. I love my life now, but I still love performing in the arts. So it's more a hobby that I do when I have time, but I love it.
Oh, well, that's awesome.
Yeah, the play that we went to at the Salty Dinner Theater, she actually wrote it. And it was really well written. It
was fun. My daughter was in it, so it was fun.
That's right. Your daughter was the creepy crow in the cave.
She was a killer.
No, because we sat there, we really enjoyed the play, but we kept going, God, this is really well written. This is really well put together, And I wonder who wrote that. That was the question we were asking. So yeah, we were really excited to meet you and all of that. So that's great. How many have you written for Salty? Is that your first one, or do you collaborate?
I think it's probably the first one I've done solo. There was a little collaboration, but I was the primary writer. But I've collaborated with others quite a bit on different scripts.
That's awesome.
And we probably ought to explain that what Salty Dinner Theater is you actually go and eat at a restaurant, and they perform in the restaurant. So you're eating while they're performing, and they're dancing around you, and there's audience participation. It's a lot of fun. We've been to several of them, but I think yours was my favorite one. It was very well done. So
I think
it's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's no fourth wall, meaning we connect with the audience and improv. It's wild. It's fun.
No, it really is. So being a writer, which you are, that will, I think, eventually segue into the next thing that we're going to talk about. But at this point in your life, you're both faithful, active members of the church. You're in Utah. You're living the dream with the kids and having callings. And tell me about your callings. What were you doing?
Well, the louder I got, the less power. My callings were such that I had less of a voice. So I worked in the women's presidency for a while, which I loved, primary presidency. My husband and I did a lot of gospel principle teaching. Every time we moved, they keep giving us that, calling, and youth, Sunday school, ward missionary, things like that.
Yeah. The kind of stuff where you're just outgoing and you're working with the kids. And I can see why they would call you to that. Absolutely. I mean, I can see being in that Sunday school class would be really fun and exciting. So that's awesome. Just living the dream and going along.
Mm-hmm.
Never the choir director?
Oh no, they always were like, oh, you sing, you should direct the choir. I'm like, I can do that. I'm a solo singer. I was in choirs, but
there's sometimes a really disconnect. There's a disconnect on music callings, I find. Like they don't quite understand. Like
I know, play the organ for us. Just because I sing, I can't play the organ.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. No, I played the piano, but I couldn't play the organ. And I was in a ward once where they go, we want you to play the organ. We're going to give you organ lessons. They're going to be every Saturday from 9 until 3. Every Saturday for like 5 months. How to do it, right? It was one of the first times that I ever said no, because I typically didn't. But that was just, I have little kids in soccer. I'm not going to be taking organ lessons every Saturday for, Looking back though, had I done it, they were free organ lessons. I might be in the conference center right now. But
you missed an opportunity.
I missed an opportunity. So. All right, we digress. It's okay. There's so many tangents. So then we come to a point where there was a very famous talk. Landon, why don't you discuss that?
Yeah, I think we all know of Elder Holland's musket talk at BYU, and it stirred up quite a few people got stirred up from that. And Monique was one of them. In fact, I remember this. I didn't know this till she told me that she had put this article out, but I remembered it when she when she sent it, because it was written by a faithful member and was very critical of the musket talk. And I remember reading it in the paper going, wow, this person's got some guts if they're active, because it's very strongly worded. And it was very well written. So it's, once I learned that, you've got a PhD and stuff and you're a writer, I understood why. But I was going, wow, this is really.
I was scared.
I bet. Do you have the article, Landon, to pull up? Did we find it?
I do have the article. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, because I would, and I would imagine once we show it that some of our viewers will go, I remember that, because the unique thing about it was that you were faithful, and yet you saw that talk and you understood the damage that it was doing and could do, and you had to speak out. So let's talk about that. Tell us your mindset, how you heard about the talk, what your reaction was, and what made you decide to do it, because it's a big step to write something like that.
Yeah,
a lot of us felt that way privately, but to take it to where you took it, that's a whole different thing.
And I'm bringing it up right now.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, thank you. There we go. So by the point, at the time that he gave that talk, my husband and I had already been transitioning through our faith in a manner of like nuance, right? Like we've been dissecting and deconstructing. I think having children really propelled it. Like, wait a second, we love this religion. We know it's true, so we can't leave. But holy cow, like, this stuff is wrong. And I had originally, my brother's gay. And I remember when he came out, it's like, I love you, but, you're sinning. That's where I was at, And so it took quite a few years. I remember my babies being little, and I spoke to someone really close to me. And I said, honestly, I'm really praying every day and researching and troubled, because I can't figure out why it's a sin to be gay. It's not. It's not. And I'm not going to teach my children it's a sin. And the response was, well, what kind of a mother are you? From someone very close to me who I respected. So it was kind of years and years of going, oh my gosh, this is not okay. And the 2017 policy change, my husband and I, that's the first time we went, do we believe this? Like, can we, how can this be right? So it had been a journey of honestly really never letting go of the belief that this was the one and only true restored gospel with the priest's authority and the keys. I can't leave. But at the same time, it was like this double-edged sword of, this stuff is wrong. Like, we're harming people. And so we felt like, and if we're going to stay in this religion, we have an obligation as members to speak against the problems. And we naively thought perhaps we could make improvement, right? And
a difference from the inside. I think that a lot of people do, and they stay for a long time, and for some it works for a while, but then eventually.
And for those who want to read it, it's you can just Google it, but it's Monique Derr, Christ Never Taught to Exclude Homosexuals from Eternal Happiness, in the Salt Lake Tribune. So if you search Monique Derr, Salt Lake Tribune, you'll find this article, and it's well worth the read.
Thanks. So yeah, we were really I think we're kind of unique. I don't know how many people fit in the box of being like 100% this is the true church, but also 100% this. Can I cuss on this? This SHIT.
Yes, you can. No, you can. Yeah.
And so, my husband had been storming out of he stormed into Relief Society and was like, we're getting out of here. We're done with this shit they're teaching. Like they were teaching racist stuff. And so, so we'd been on, I was that loud family member constantly hounding my family. How can you think this is okay? And so it wasn't out of the norm for me to be speaking against it, but I think it was, like you said, out of the norm to speak against it as passionately as I did, when I also was like this temple going, like, I was like, this is it, and working in activism for years, so many people and higher ed, research and different circles I'm in, they're like, so like you fight against this inequality, but at the same time, and I was just like, I know, but I can fix it. It's okay. And I do feel like on a micro level, I was able to be there for people and make some differences in different lives, but only on a micro level. 100% I had no voice. And my husband, even as a white man with the priesthood, he's like, I don't have a voice either. Like, they shut you off. So anyways, we were very much in, but very much speaking against the, racism, patriarchy, and the queer phobia. And then this talk came out from Holland. And the thing is, Holland was one of those guys I was like, okay, I have hope. Like I was constantly grabbing onto any crumbs of hope that there would be progress. And they'd be like, okay, 1 step forward and 5 back, you know. But I thought, Holland, he's this, like, I loved him. I was like, he gets it. And then he gave that talk. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was horrified. Right. And I really felt like, how can I possibly have any kind of, for me, how can I have any integrity if I'm part of this organization where the leaders, this isn't from the bottom, this is the leaders, the top down, saying, I mean, such hateful things. And in academia too, like to see a young man use a valedictorian speech to be so vulnerable and share something so beautiful and have the apostle attack him for it and then bring up violent metaphors, I was heartbroken and devastated. And I couldn't understand why everyone was not losing their minds about it. And honestly, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to write a letter and send it to the Salt Lake Tribune. And so I casually sent an email. Hey, if I have this idea. And they go, yeah, send it over. And I sent it by Friday. And I think I spent 3 days in complete anxiety. Like, should I do this? I can't do this. What's going to happen?
Did your husband know that you were thinking about it? Was he?
Oh yeah, and he's as nuanced. He's always been like, he's like, do it, babe, like 100%. But I was like, I don't know what will happen, because if you read it, it's not gentle. I mean, I'm really angry. I mean, I'm saying it like.
No, that's why it stood out. That's why both Landon and I remember reading it, and I think like sharing it. Like I shared it with my husband, you shared it with your wife. I mean, we shared it around and went, look at this. I mean, it was very.
I love that you guys saw. I didn't know how many people read it, but you know, when I finally was like, I'm doing this. I remember I was getting off the freeway, heading home, and I'm just praying in my heart, petrified. I have this window to publish this article. Should I do this? And I swear to you, call it universal energy, God, whatever it means to you, this thought came very clearly to me. Read the lyrics of To Dream the Impossible Dream from Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
That's your answer. And I was like, that's weird. I'm somewhat familiar with the song, I just don't remember it. And if you read the lyrics, it's like, oh my gosh, it's basically calling someone to courage and just to do something bold, no matter how hard it is, because it's the right thing. And I was like, okay, God, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it, you know.
I love that he spoke to you through show tunes, one of my favorite things. And that is one of my favorite songs. So see, the energy, whatever's there, knew how to reach you, because you are.
And I remember I read these words, and it was just, you know, I don't have it memorized, but if you look it up, I was sobbing. There was no denying. I'm like, I'm doing this. Like, I can't. And I didn't think it'd make a huge difference, but I just felt like it's what I needed to do. And so that's how it came about. And, you know, I thought there'd be fallout. My family was used to me being loud. I was disappointed that family and friends that were really TBN were like, well, that was a little harsh. I hope the apostle's okay. I'm like, what do you mean the apostle's okay? What about all the people killing themselves? They're not okay, you know?
So they really asked if President Holland would be okay. Oh my!
Yes, they were worried about him because I was too mean to him. I'm like, he didn't even read it. But why are you worried about that? You know, like you're missing it so painfully. I said, and I had been meeting with my bishop because I was struggling. I was like, I'm not going to leave. I have this determination. I will never leave. I'll never be weak. I'll never lose my faith, right? But I was like, I can't reconcile this stuff. And so I was meeting with him a few times, and I was like, I need a spiritual mentor that can help me see hope here. And that, you know, he's really sweet, but, you know, I was just debunking all the terrible gay rhetoric, talking points, you know. But so I sent it to him. I said, you need to know this is where I'm at. I just sent this to the apostle. This is how I feel. And he was very kind and gentle. You know, it's Bishop Russian roulette. I mean, I think I could have had a worse experience, but he was like, I'm so sorry you're suffering. But it's always like a little, how do we deal with this strange TBM that's so loud and obnoxious, you know?
And now she's written something in the Tribune. Yeah, it's a next level thing.
Overall, it was the reaction. I mean, I'm sure whispers behind closed doors. A few people were really touched and thanked me, but it didn't cause too much fallout.
Did you find sometimes you'll do that, and you know you'll hear the outspoken ones, but then people come up and say, I read your article, way to go.
Yeah, I think I had a few friends like message me, you know, things like that, but it was people were really afraid. A lot of TVNs were, I think, afraid to boldly, because I think it resonated with some people, but it was controversial and people are afraid. A lot of people are just afraid, you know?
Wow, that is so interesting. And so the article's out and not really any fallout. So then explain to us how you ended up on the other side of Mormonism.
Sure,
if you were determined, and the cognitive dissonance, because it sounds like you were 100% in and 100% opposed to like the November 15th and things like that. And everyone can probably relate to this. There's a point where your brain just goes nuclear. So we love that drama. No, I'm kidding. Just share whatever.
It's a necessary process. I mean, my husband and I both had a temple recommend when we stopped, when we were like, we're done. I mean, we were in, like, because it almost feels like you don't have a choice. If you really like, this is the one and only way I can be with my babies forever. What can I do? You know, like it's so the cognitive distance. And I had like, you know, extended family that have left and been like, hey, Mo, did you happen to read the CES letter? And I was always like, oh, yeah, I know there's crap in the history. I don't like polygamy, but you know what? People make mistakes. Like, I didn't realize at the time, I thought I was being open-minded, but I was still really stuck in the cognitive dissonance, you know? Like, I think I was crawling out of it, but it's so intense when your whole identity, your whole life is wrapped up in this, you know? And so, I mean, I had a lot of childhood trauma and like, leaning on Christ and my faith and my spirituality, that I'm like, that's how I got through it. So how do I detangle my identity and my healing, you know? And so it was so challenging in that way. But as you know, during COVID, we weren't going very much because nobody wore masks. I'm like, well, I have children. I don't want to get COVID. So and in any case, we also were homeschooling, and I've always been very focused on teaching my kids all the different religions and theologies, and we were really learning more mindfulness and meditating, and I was like, you know, we were really praying to Heavenly Mother. They loved praying to Heavenly Mother. We're little feminist children, and so we were really kind
all
of
while
journey.
Being active and going to church. At home, you were. I would hate to be your child's primary teacher. They must have heard some really.
Well, to me, I was like, okay, even if George was true, you know, that doesn't mean I basically started following my own authority, my own gut. And I taught my girls, I never taught them anything different than this. Yeah. What an old white man says on TV or in the newspaper or whatever is far less important than what you feel you're supposed to do. Like your connection to your source, that's primary, you know? So in that way, our transition wasn't terribly challenging as far as like feeling spiritually lost, but I was like, well, we have to stay. It's true. And but as we were learning and exploring, and you know, I'm reading different books, even from LDS scholars and things, where it's like, you know, and I've traveled, I'm meeting people from different places, and I'm like, why is this the only path? How does that honestly make sense? If this is the only way, you know, all these other things have beautiful truths. And so then I remember talking to my family and like, yeah, I don't think this is the only way. You know, I think other people have ways. And then if that was true, then that means I don't have to stay and deal with all the pain. That means I'm not stuck. And so it was slowly happening, but a few things were kind of the kickers. A huge one, my best friend is atheist, agnostic, you know, in that realm. And she's never, you know, had that strong testimony and struggled with it. So she's like, I admit that I don't understand what it's like, but also what the hell? She never understood it. And I remember saying to her right before the last spring conference, 2022, there was rumors that they were going to tell us, don't pray to Heavenly Mother and don't try and learn about Heavenly Mother. Yeah. And my girls love, like that was kind of like their link. I mean, they really were like, Mom, why are only the boys allowed to serve sacrament? Mom, why can't the girls have the priesthood? And I never did apologetics with my kids. I was like, I mean, you're right. It's dumb, you know, but that's not a great answer. Like, then why are we here, you know? And so I was struggling, but we really hung out to Heavenly Mother. And I remember saying to my friend once when we were having this conversation right before the conference, I said, I gotta be honest with you, as much as I've always been TDM, I'm terrified that rumor is going to be true, because how can I look at my daughters in the eyes and say, yeah, I guess in our religion, you only get men. Women are just second class, and that's just how it has to be. And it happened. Do you remember? It happened in the conference.
Yeah.
They said all that, and I was like, you know, and my husband and I were watching Under the Banner of Heaven, which is so good. And there's this scene in it. So this is all kind of happening around the same time. There was a scene in it when Emma was like, I'm out, you know, and she went, and Brigham Young's the New Prophet. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but she goes and takes her son, puts her arm around him, and she walks away. And her face, I mean, I just want to email the producers and be like, and the directors and be like, thank you. Yeah. It wasn't, she was leaving and she wasn't weak. She wasn't all these other stereotypes. It was a face of maternal strength. And I was like, wow, you know, that's powerful. And we went recently also to the Pioneer Museum, it's
Daughters of the Utah Pioneers.
Yeah.
I think, the one next to the Capitol.
Yes. Yep.
We were just there a couple months ago.
Yes. And
Outrageous.
there's just a billion, you know, objects, portraits, clothing, etc., from pioneers and tons of women. And we walked through it, and it was so. My daughters are just, they're little empaths. I mean, we really are sensitive to emotions and energy. And I just remember thinking to myself, even, damn, this is a depressing place. Why is this a depressing place? Why is this so sad and negative? And my daughters were like, Mom, this is so sad. And we went home and they were sad for about 24 hours. And I'm like, well, we shouldn't be sad when we look at museums of our pioneers' history. It's supposed to be these happy, wonderful people that embraced it, you know? And, but the ultimate was, my husband said, we had friends over and we were conversing about this. And he said, you know, if I were a woman, I could not be a member of this church. And I went, what?
And he'd never expressed that or anything like that before. I mean,
he had said it to me once before, and he's always very supportive. And I found out after the fact, he was like, I could have left when the policy changed. And you know, he never did tithing. We'd fight about that. And I was always like, how can you not really lead us in spiritual stuff? And he's like, sorry. So we didn't communicate well. It's one of those things where it's like, he was like, I could have left sooner. So when I was out, he was like, let's go, you know? And so him saying that,
you never had those issues. That's great.
Yeah. So him saying that was not, but we're going to stay because it works for me. It was him acknowledging this is very patriarchal and it's gross to me. I don't know why it's okay. But I crumbled. I was like, if you don't think women can be here, then why are we doing this? Why are you dragging us away? And he was like, babe, I'm just following your lead. Like, so I just fell apart. It was on his birthday, May 13th last year. I punched a hole in the wall, you guys. I mean, I was like falling apart as I'm letting go of this intense core belief that this is the one and only church. And he said, and I was like, I can't remember that day, but it wasn't good. And I'm crying hysterical. And he's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? My poor wife is crazy. And he just said to me, listen, babe, if you say to me, we're never going again, we'll never go again. And I just remember pausing and looking at him and saying, I don't want to ever go again. And he said, we're not then. And that was it. And as soon as we made that flip, that was it. We were done. I emailed my bishop, we're out. Like, and I talked to my mom, I had a panic attack, but I called family. That was it for us. Like once I was able to let go of that, I was free. And that's how it felt.
That's the first time I've heard of, people read the CES letter to go out and maybe rough stone rolling. I've never heard go the Daughters of the Utah Pioneer Museum.
I don't know that was their intent. Like, wait, funny story is when we were leaving, do you remember what happened, Rebecca? They were just closing up and some guy came up at the end as they were closing up and had a dumb blonde joke for Rebecca.
Yeah, he goes, want to hear a dumb blonde joke? I'm like, why would you think I want to hear a dumb blonde joke? I have a master's degree, I mean, yeah, exactly. He goes, no, this is great. And his wife was standing there going, ha, ha, it's okay. I forgave him.
Oh my gosh, I hate that.
But yeah, I'm like, really? Okay.
So that seems to be the place to go to have bad experiences.
Well, the other interesting thing about that museum, I don't know if you noticed, but they have a huge display and everything in it is brought, across the plains here or belonged to pioneers here. So they had a huge collection of tea kettles and coffee pots. and coffee grinders. I mean, we all know that they drank coffee. If you look at any of
Oh
the
yeah, there's like,
manifests of what they brought, but just to see it displayed like that, it was just like interesting. But I understand what your daughters felt and what you felt.
Yeah,
probably.
like these women were not happy, Mom. These women were not happy.
No,
none of them.
They were not.
Most of you know, and I'm like,
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, and I've been kind of following what made sense to me. Like I got to a point where even though I couldn't let go that it was true, I was like, well, the word of wisdom is like, we're interpreting it so stupid. So I'm going to drink coffee and not have a bunch of sugar and watch my meat and not take a, like that just means take care of your body. And garments, I slowly was stopping wearing them, but I was like, I don't feel bad about it because I don't think I owe these old men my dedication to covering my body with the underwear they want me to. Like, so I've been kind of on that path for a while, but I couldn't let go, but it's true.
Yeah.
So I got to fix it,
Well, you've been tethered to that your whole life and it meant something to you. And as you said, you had experiences that you can't deny that were something that were meaningful and supportive of you. So of course it's hard. So when you distance yourself from garments, did you go the workout gear route? That's what I did. I literally wore workout gear from 2002 to I finally just stopped wearing garments. It's like, oh, she's working out, right? No.
You know what? I honestly think a lot of women are doing that.
We got a letter in our stake. Yeah, no, we actually got a letter in our stake in the early 2000s because everyone was doing that said, first of all, why are you going to the gym? Do you have to? Think about that. Yeah, exactly.
You should be at home cleaning the house.
No, it was like, why are you, I don't know what they were afraid of. And then it said, if you do go to the gym, make sure that you change out of your clothes right away. And I just thought, oh my God.
I remember we lived in Memphis when remember there was a transition, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, 15 years ago, where the garment thing got really intense. Like, don't wear it, wear your garments for this and this and this. And they specifically would say, like, doing yard work, you need your garments. And I'm like, do you know how intense the heat and the humidity is in Memphis? Like, we're having heat stroke here.
Yep.
This feels
women have their own issues with garments.
This is weird.
Okay, Landon, plug your ears. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, there are major.
Oh yes, it's not healthy. That's how I started. I'm like, I'm not wearing the bottoms. They make me. And then
isn't that funny?
Like, I need the tops. So, but I just I wore t-shirts still because I was like, I don't want to be judged,
Yeah.
Like,
No, that's exactly it.
Modest, but I'm not doubling layering my clothing.
Oh, I used to keep a garment top. I finally graduated to this maybe like 2 years ago. But I would just wear garment looking clothing, but without the garment under it because I literally feel I didn't have a name for it, but I felt like I had body dysmorphia as soon as I put them on. Like I remember being, I got married when I was a little older, 25. So I'd had plenty of years to be wearing all the fun stuff. And I remember putting them on and I literally felt like I had gained 30 pounds. I felt completely.
Well, and that's the thing. It's so unflattering. And I hear people say, you just want to leave the church so that you can feel sexy. Well, what?
Yeah, what's wrong?
Why can't I feel sexy? Why can't I feel womanly?
You want to feel sexy. That's right.
Should I just wear a tent? Like, is that where we're at? It was so icky.
It's a big deal. It really is. I mean, maybe not as much for guys. I have to laugh at my husband because, he stopped wearing garments, but then he goes, hey, can you buy me some white t-shirts? I'm like, well, sure. He's used to that. And then he goes, what about some like white boxer briefs, TMI? But he literally looks like he's wearing garments.
He has, Well, I'll tell you, my husband has little boxer briefs now, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
Well,
the
nice
benefit.
Change.
Again, Landon, plug your ears.
I get to talk now.
Don't show us your boxer
I
briefs.
went right to those too.
But I used to keep a garment top in the car. In case I was headed to a relative's, like maybe I'm at work and then I don't know I'm going to go to a relative's house. And, then I kind of graduated to this. And now I feel like, I can't really wear short sleeves. I can wear long sleeves. That's fine. But something that's here, I can't do it.
Almost
so here it is February. And yes, or almost February. I am wearing this because, I also wear it on Mormonish and my other programs I do, because I don't want there to be any confusion about kind of where I stand. You know what I mean? And it's a very nice
funny that
way
showing your
to just
shoulders
say, yeah,
is such a statement here.
that inch means,
It's
oh,
like a
she's
line
probably,
in the
yeah,
sand.
no, but that way it's clear. Oh, she's nuanced, or maybe she's more post. It explains who you are.
And I'd have people, they'd see that, if I posted pictures
Right.
going out to an event in a gown with no tank top or with no shoulder cap. I mean, I'd have, my sister would run into people that I barely know, that she didn't even know, like coincidentally, oh my gosh, like this happened a few times. Oh, I noticed your sister is not wearing her garments anymore from her Facebook.
The garment police.
Is she leaving the church? I'm like, oh, that's so icky. Like, stop it.
No, especially where we live here in Utah. I remember one time my husband is a DJ, so I help him do stuff. And we were DJing the 4th of July big parade down in Provo, the big one.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We were sitting in a booth slightly off of the sidewalk, and we were going, all right, the next thing you're going to see is the Daughters of the Pioneer walking by with their sad paraphernalia. No, but anyway, so I'm doing the announcement, and I'm wearing shorts, and I'm wearing garments, and I'm wearing a t-shirt. And of course, I'm leaning forward. All of a sudden, I feel someone's hand down my pants, okay, from the back. So when you feel someone's hand down your pants, well, first I looked at my husband. No, it wasn't him. I whirl around. It's this older woman. And she goes, your garments for showing.
Oh,
I mean, it must have been maybe, you lean forward in a t-shirt and they're tucked in.
That
It
is
must have
so
been like that.
creepy.
So her hand
Cringy
was
that we've
down my pants to put my shirt back in. And she's like, garments. And I was just like, okay, next we have the brigade of the fire. And, it was the weirdest experience, but it taught me that there's no level where invasiveness is not okay. You can literally put your hand down a street.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
To make sure that their garment is not revealed. So,
oh my word.
I've always wanted to tell that story, and now I got to tell it live on air.
Now you have to tell it. Now we know.
So
a stranger put her hand down your pants because your magic underwear.
Well, and I don't know what the male equivalent of being able to wear porn shoulders is, Landon. I mean, I don't know. What do you think? How do you reveal to people that you may have a different ideology now? Are you wearing pants?
I let my belly hang out under my t-shirt,
Is it like a white shirt?
There's no white shirt there, and they go, hey. really sexy.
No, the answer is, it's my bottle of scotch that I walk out on my front porch every morning with, right? Is that?
Well, yeah, geez. It's freeing though, because I've always wanted to. I love tank tops. I don't like a lot of clothes. I'm like a hippie. I'm like a crunchy girl. And I love now, because I didn't want to feel like a hypocrite before, so I was very frank. I'm like, here's where I stand. I do have a glass of wine sometimes, and here's why. Like, I try not to be two-faced, but at the same time, it's like, I still feel like if I'm in this community, this religion, like, I still need to uphold the, appearances. And so it's so nice now that if I walk outside and if I know I have a glass of wine and my shoulders are showing, I'm like, oh, but that's okay, because they already know I'm an apostate, so it doesn't matter.
And there it is.
But one thing too, like, kind of going back to the identity thing, there were some very special experiences that I had that really truly helped me through a lot of. I mean, everyone's got their stuff, but I had a lot of stuff, And so that's the part too that I kept hanging on to, and I finally went, you know what? I don't have to lose that. Leaving the church, they don't have the monopoly on my spirituality. They don't have the monopoly on a relationship with Christ. And so I'm taking the precious things with me. I'm not losing anything. I'm just leaving behind the toxic, harmful things, And that was really an empowering thing to realize.
Wow. Again, I keep clapping for what you're saying, Monique. It's absolutely perfect. No, that's exactly right. And it seems like something that's so obvious, but it's not obvious.
I know. And that's the thing. Now, when you kind of leave, I'm like, and there's so many times I'm trying not to be hard on myself, because I'm like, that should have been so obvious to me. Like, what was wrong with me? But cognitive dissonance, and there's, I can't remember his name at the top of my head, but I remember during this process sharing information about research on spirituality, right? There's, I think Fowler's the name, but there's like 7 phases of spirituality.
The stages, yep.
Yes, and most people kind of get hung up on the 3rd or 4th, which is fine if that's what works for you. But if you try and go to the next, it's excruciating, but it's kind of it's very elevating and freeing. Yeah. But that's an important thing to remember. And I try to remember that too, because I'm looking at things and I'm like, there's such like actual evidence. This is so obvious, the history that there's so many lies, and it's so obvious. Like, And so it's hard not to want to take that information to people that are TB and that I care about and be like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
Look, it's so obvious. But then I have to tell myself, but look at me. Like I was 38. I was 38 when I was able to, and I'm an educated activist. I'm like, and it still took, and I
Dr.
thought
Monique.
right? And I thought, I'm not an apologist. I see it for what it is. And I still didn't, and so it reminds me to have a lot of grace and patience, because spiritual journeys are individual and intense.
That's right. And they're very complex. It reminds me of, and Landon was at this event too. It was Thrive 2 years ago in Salt Lake, where Natasha Helfer, do you remember this?
Yeah.
Gave just a wonderful, she said, basically, you're standing in the middle, turn around and look at your past self. Everybody look at them and forgive them. And they did the best they could. And they're still a good person. Do not be disappointed. Do not be mad at your former self. And then turn around and let's see where we're going to go. And that was so powerful. You could just see that people were just standing there going, I've never thought of that. I'm frustrated with my past self. I have to forgive that self. They were absolutely doing the best they can. And here I am. So yes, shout out to Natasha. Those exercises have stayed with us. They really have.
Yeah.
And we raised some pretty good kids too along the way, so
that's right. You have to look at that too. So no, that's true. And maybe that's one of our next things we'd like to talk to you about, because you are a mom of 4 younger. I mean, I think your oldest is starting 12. To be a teenager-ish. Yeah. And so that's, you said they were okay with not going to church anymore, but I know where you live. You live kind of by me, and I always call it a bubble inside a bubble inside a bubble. So there are some challenges to navigate. Maybe would you like to share it? Because I don't think we've had anyone on, Landon, to talk about that phase of life, which is very important with navigating with the kids.
Right. Well, it's very hard, because I do feel like, because of our own kind of spiritual journey and teaching them to have their own authority, and our kind of very feminist approach to looking at religion and things like that, we were able to transition spiritually kind of seamlessly, because from the day we were TV in to the day we're out, which was literally within a day. Like once I was like, I don't hold on to that authority, I was like, then I'm done, Nothing changed as far as our spiritual beliefs, because we'd already been kind of like doing our own, following our own instinct and our own personal revelation. Call it whatever you want, the Holy Ghost, my gut instinct, whatever you want to call it. I think it's all the same thing, right? And so I'm grateful for that, because that made it not too jarring for them in terms of like, oh my gosh, now what do we believe? But it was still hard, because I was like, this is true, kids. We're going to go to church. And she's excited for Young Women's and she was getting ready to, I think we had just done her temple experience for the first time, which frankly, I was very like, honey, there's some weirdness. We were like, there's some stuff we don't like about this, but she really wanted to experience it. And I'm like, well, what's the harm in checking it out? But,
right.
But she's in this awkward place. And my younger daughter, very intuitive little love. I mean, loved Heavenly Mother, like obsessed with Heavenly Mother, And so even though we'd kind of prepared them on accident, because we did not think we were going to leave until we left. Honestly, truly, I did not think I would until I did. But it was still hard. Like I remember talking to them and like, hey guys, like we need to talk about something. Me and Daddy are like deciding. And my oldest cried. It was still hard. It was confusing. And I knew, and I took a lot of accountability too. I'm like, you know what? I raised you in this. I taught you this is true. And I do give myself credit for allowing them room to question a ton of stuff. But nonetheless, this is the church I raised you in. And so I can't just suddenly pull you out. So I said, you know what do you want to do? Do you still want to go to Young Women activities? Like, do you want to go to camp this summer? Like, how are you feeling? And so she did kind of. She went to camp still. And so we told the Young Women leaders, please don't, because they were kind of pressuring her, guilting her to go to church. And the Young Women were. And they were very respectful. I said, how do you want us to handle this? I said, invite her to activities, because the only way she hangs out with people around here is if she goes to activities. That's the only way, And so she kind of dabbled a little bit, but, when she went to girls' camp, she had a transgender rights shirt she slept in. I mean, she's just this little queer ally, my daughter. Like, she's amazing. And that didn't go well. And so she's just kind of, and I'm like, you need to decide for yourself. And then finally, she didn't go much with other extracurricular, but she did she went a final time and was like, man, I don't fit in. And I said, honey, to be honest with you, I don't know that this is the safest space for you, but but I want you to make that choice. And so she's finally like, I'm not going to go to girls camp again. And they asked recently, hey, is she ready? And I said, you know what, like, she doesn't really feel comfortable, like she fits in socially. And honestly, spiritually, we're on our own journey and we're feeling great about it. So no, but thank you. And they've been mostly respectful. I mean, they have been respectful, weird comments, but mostly respectful of our boundaries. But it's undeniable that as soon as we left, and I was public. I know everyone has a different journey, but for me, I'm like, I've been so loud about everything. I'm going to be loud about this,
Right.
Overnight, they lost all their friends. No one's knocked on my door since last May to play with my kids.
Oh my God.
And quite a few used to before that. I mean, no one. And we tried. We brought cookies. Here's our number. We tried. The only interest they have in socializing with our family is if it's in the context of a church activity. And that's disappointing, and it's hard. We're literally the only ones in our community that aren't part of the community anymore. So it's been hard as far as that goes. However, we've been cultivating extracurricular activities and social community service experiences already for so long with them that they still have that outlet. They still have those support networks, and I feel like they're much healthier.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I would bring up the Thrive organizations. Those are wonderful. They have them in lots of different cities. They have an overall one. We've started something that's like a Thrive Sunday where you can kind of go to a.
I love that. We wanted to go to that.
And we had our first one last Sunday in Provo, and a lot of kids showed up, which was awesome. And the kids were all talking. So I think there are avenues, people on the other side of it because you're not alone in that. I think a lot of kids feel that. I mean, both Landon and I stepped away when our kids were older, so we didn't have those issues. Although older kids have those issues too.
Yeah. To be totally honest,
have a hard time. Who do I date? Everybody.
Yeah, who do I date?
I know. Well, and my daughter has this crush on this boy, this cool band program she's in, and I'm just kind of deep down in my heart cringing because I'm like, are the parents going to tell him you can't talk to her when she says she's, it's probably
legitimately maybe, honestly.
And it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be really hard. But
wow.
We did find out there is a Thrive for singles too.
Oh, cool.
At the thing on Sunday. So I didn't know that. And I'm not exactly sure how you get in touch with them, but that's something for singles.
There's a lot of great, we're not lacking in that realm.
Right.
It's disappointing, but we're okay.
Right. Well, if you think about it, when you're in the church, it's plug and play no matter where you go. Like if you move to Minnesota tomorrow, your kids will be plugged in. I mean, and that is the beauty of it, that community.
Yeah. And we moved a lot.
Really
Yeah. And I think it's important to allow ourselves to honor the positives. Like I have had a lot of great experiences and opportunities in the gospel. It's not like it's all bad just because it's not true. There's still, and I think it's okay to allow ourselves that, and maybe grieve the loss of that community. But on the same hand, it doesn't feel like a loss if they don't see us as we are. Like I'm not interested in those kind of relationships for my children. I don't want that for them. Right. So be it, No,
and I think you've really stated what Mormonish, our podcast, is all about. There's a reason it's called Mormonish. We're still Mormons. This is my soapbox. I say it every time,
Well,
there's faithful, there's nuance, there's post. They're just doing something different. But culturally and everything that we believed in, all those experiences that we still hold in our hearts that were wonderful, we're Mormon-ish. And so we can talk about it and navigate it from there. So
it's part of our identity still, And I think, there's a lot of, it's meant to gaslight and scare people from leaving, but there's a lot of attack on members who leave. Yeah. Just totally diminishing us to just being these like angry people that can't let it go. Right. And that's frustrating because it's okay if I can't let it go. This has been my whole life. It's okay if I'm still trying to untangle it. It's okay if I'm still trying to figure out what I can value from my entire life experience in this versus what I'm learning and unraveling and how I'm supporting and validating where I'm at now. Like, and also it's okay to be angry. That doesn't.
Absolutely.
I feel it's frustrating when people say, obviously it's true because you left and look at you now. You're just like angry and sad. And I'm like, do you say that to people that leave an abusive relationship and they're angry when they leave, do you say you should probably go back because look how upset you are, right? No. And I do think it's important. Everyone's journey is different. And I do think it's important to validate that process of the transition, but to keep going, right? Like staying in a place of anger doesn't help. It's not a healing place. It's a necessary step. That's not a healing place. And that's why I love your podcast, to kind of highlight, hey, here we are. We left, and guess what? We didn't lose everything.
It's okay. But we also don't want to diminish exactly what you said, that different people, their journey is different. And some people, there is so much trauma. Right. It's probably annoying to see a podcast like this going, hey, we're doing, because that's not everybody's story. And it hasn't been our story the whole time. And who knows in the future? I mean, I always tell everybody, I'm very closeted. My extended family does not know that I'm out. My own parents don't know that I'm out. My 2 TBM sons know that I'm out, and they have very slowly been estranging themselves sort of from me. And so sometimes you're over trauma and you're in a place, and then you realize, you look in the future and there's more to come that you're going to have to deal with.
You're right. It's like, I feel like it's a grieving process, which is not a linear path. Exactly. It's a ping pong ball. So you may find in a year you're angry again about something else that's emerged.
Or something triggers it. Something comes out. Yeah. And you're just like, what? Are you kidding me?
It takes a long time to heal. A long time. And we need to give ourselves grace and respect that journey.
Yep. And no right or wrong. Don't you agree, Landon? Sorry. We're just like chatting.
I absolutely do. Yep. You've got you gotta grieve, but then you got to move on, it's
right, because
you gotta find a way.
It's freeing. Like, allow yourself to enjoy the rest of your journey, because I got a lot out of it, but I was stuck in a box, and now it's an exciting journey, right?
The world's open. Yep.
Yes. And I think the more I'm like, I'm like trying to navigate this, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, this belief that that's the one and only is so harmful, and it's so not true, and it's breaking families apart. The reality is, if we embrace, there's a whole bunch of paths. There are, right? We're really looking for self-actualization. We're looking to heal. We're looking to learn. We're looking to be more enlightened, and there's various ways to do that in various cultures and various parts of history with a lot of themes that all line up, right? And if you understand that, we're almost a kaleidoscope here. We're going to speak against the harm, but honor the rest of the journey. There's nothing wrong with someone saying, you know what, this path isn't working for me. This path is better for me. We wouldn't feel this angst of trying to convince, like, oh no, now you're not going to be with me for eternity, right? Like
that's so damaging. I know, because
it's not true,
It's so damaging, though. It's and you can see the pain and the devastation of parents that their kids have left, and it's. No matter what their behavior is, they're coming from a place of love. They think they're not going to be with their child again. And so it's almost like you have to use earthly tough love to get them into shape so that you can, be together in the next life. But it's so sad. And I have to say, it goes the other way too. Kids can sometimes do that to their parents who have left. So, it wreaks havoc on relationships.
Oh man, that is so hard.
So it is
so
really
hard. And I'm very, very lucky that my husband and I were in sync, because of that.
And your whole family. I mean, that's almost a miracle story. A lot of people are in just such.
I'm really grateful, because I hear so many stories, and it breaks my heart,
I know. Wow. So tell us, since the theme of Mormonish is living a joyful life on the other side of Mormonism, and we've heard about all kinds of joyful things you're doing, is there anything else that you're involved in or interested in that you'd like to share? We just love to talk to you. We're doing so many interesting things.
Kind of going back to that, like, I don't like calling it even a faith crisis for me. Someone worded it faith expansion.
Right.
And I'm like,
I love that.
That's what this is for me. This is a faith expansion.
Yeah.
Honestly. I just feel more free to explore things I've always felt interested in, or that felt right to me, but I'm like, I can't do that, right? And so in this expansion, we're just exploring so many things. I love Buddhism. I'm really on this mindfulness journey, which is applicable to any, you can be a Mormon and anyone on that journey. Oh, Buddhism. Oh, good. I have like 100 books like that. It's so
I helped John DeLynn run his Mormon Stories book club, and tomorrow we're interviewing Noah Rashada. So
really? It's just it's like golden.
So good. So
it's golden. There's so many different kind of mindfulness books and psychology and the neuroscience behind so many things, and I'm just mind blown at how much more there is out there and how free I am to explore it, all these different theologies. And I've really been focusing on mindfulness with my kids. We do morning magic every day where they have to meditate, say affirmations, G is for gratitude journal. We spell it with a Y for yoga, something physical, and then C is create, go create something. Because
oh my
I
gosh,
really feel.
Did you invent that yourself?
Yes, I did.
She's like, of course I did. Now you're making children's
she's gonna write a book.
Morning magic. But
add that to the bottom. Wait, say what it is again. So it's meditation,
it's magic with a Y,
and gratitude, yoga
and create.
And create something.
Right. And the meditate is often, if it, like, either listen to meditation or go ground, like stand outside in the grass and take deep breaths and be in the moment. I really am into grounding. But I mean, there's
such a great mom. That's so awesome.
So sweet. I just feel like it's so empowering because I'm realizing all of my triggers and all of this ego and brain controlling my thoughts, and I can shift this. And there's neuroscience behind it. It's not just energy work and voodoo and chakras, and it's all hooey-looey. No, it's legitimate, and it's really helping all of us process this transition in a way where we are strengthening our personal authority and self-confidence and self-love, right? And self-compassion, and working through recognizing, hey, I'm feeling this way because I'm triggered. Let's talk through that. Let me think through that. Why am I triggered? How can I work through that? What's this me voice in my head saying? How do I replace it? Because something else interesting, I swear to you, the moment I left and made the decision to leave, I woke up the next morning and I noticed something was missing. It was a shame voice that I had always had in my head, and it was gone. And I didn't know it was there, but I realized I don't feel shame while I'm doing X, Y, and Z, or I see like a picture of Courtney Hinckley or something, and I'd almost feel like, oh no, I'm supposed to, and then I realize, wait, I'm free of this. I don't have to just blindly be, and so I honestly am so passionate, and I love that it's picking up. It's kind of trendy now, but I'm so passionate about mindfulness and understanding like Buddhism approaches and things like that, because I think no matter if you're Mormon, atheist, Buddhist, it doesn't even matter. Like, we all can use these tools to overcome all the kind of indoctrination and the groupthink and the shame. Like, the shame is the worst, right? Brene Brown has changed my life. You guys know Brene Brown?
Brene Brown. Yes, our book club is reading. I can't remember which one. What are they?
I don't remember which one.
In a couple months.
There's so many good ones, right? But
there's so many good ones.
And here's my theory. Here's my theory on this, right? From a symbolic thing, because I think most things in religion are probably all symbolic, right? The Bible, things like that. I think there's some truth that's beautiful, but I think it's mostly symbolic, right? This is a weird thing. I'm just going to share it with you, though. I really studying Brene Brown and all these different things, and Buddhism and Hinduism and the history of Islam, everything. I've really been focusing on shame and recognizing this is a bigger deal, and this plays a bigger role in everything than I originally understood, right? And so I honestly think, I mean, even what does Satan say in the temple when he sees Adam and Eve naked? What does he say to them?
Yeah, he says you put some clothes on.
You should be ashamed, right? Yeah. So to me, Satan represents shame. This is toxic. It blinds us. It weighs us down. It's his voice in our head, and we're almost unconscious and just controlled by our brain, which is just shame. And there's a lot of trauma response in there too that may have been helpful before, and in the past it's not helpful now. But I honestly think you could say shame and Satan are synonymous. They're synonyms. And Christ, whether you don't have to believe he was anything but a great man to still maybe understand maybe the symbolism, because I kept thinking, well, then what's the point of the atonement? Like, was it this magic? Like, what's the point? Like, and I honestly think it's symbolic of unconditional love being what you pull on and call upon to squelch shame.
Wow.
Christ and atonement is how you conquer Satan. You can look at it as unconditional love squelches shame, because I think shame is the core of so many of our problems. And I think religion and the Mormon religion uses shame as a tool to control, and we all have these voices in our head that we have to untangle now. And it's hard work, but it's life-changing.
Wow. And you probably don't even realize you need to do it. It reminds me of an episode we did last week where Landon, remember you read your journal, you were on your mission for maybe 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you're writing, I'm so guilty. I feel so, I mean, it literally took
2 days.
Oh,
2 days. I'm sorry, it was 2 days. Yeah, tell that story for a second again to Monique, because exactly, like.
Yeah, and I didn't date before I went. I didn't, I was a straight A student. I didn't swear. I went to church. I was an Eagle Scout, and 2 days in the mission field, I am so shameful.
I'm such a horrible person.
Everything we should not feel, right? And that's that kills me. That breaks my heart for you. I think there's a lot of lip service. Well, you don't want to you have godly sorrow. That's different. But it's like you're not. You were still shaming, right? Like I go to the bishop crying in the singles ward. I'm so ashamed. My boyfriend touched my boobs. Oh my gosh, I'm so ashamed. Do you know what he said to me? He took my temple recommend and said, "Don't take the sacrament for 6 months."
Of course.
And I said, 6 months.
6 months.
Oh, because the boy touched my boobs in college. There's there's a million stories like this, but it's like, this is not how to treat humans. This is not how Christ
for doing what college kids do.
Yep, that's what you do.
What do you want from me? I don't even drink alcohol. I'm in college. What do you
all know
I'm a virgin. Come on.
It's a control technique. As long as you can make someone feel there's something wrong with them and they're broken, and you're the only one that has the answer, they will return to you over and over again. And once you get on the other side of it and recognize it, it's infuriating. Yes. And I'm just so proud of you for raising your children without that. I mean, they are fierce, I can tell, which is just wonderful. I love that.
I'm trying, thank you.
No, you're awesome. I think that's great. Well, Landon, do you have any other final follow-up questions? This has just been really fun.
I just want to thank you ladies for letting me listen in.
We've been talking forever, huh? I'm like,
I've learned so much.
I forgot you were even there, Landon. Sorry, it was girl talk night.
I know.
You can have some dude on next week, and I'll just sit in the background, okay?
Well, I will say, Monique, it was so fun to watch her dance, but she's just as fun on a podcast interview. She's just a fun person to be around.
This is the first podcast I've ever done. So I'm glad we could get fun.
Well, there it is. That's right. All right. Well, we could talk about
I love what you are doing. This is so important. We need this community. It's so important because you leave and you're like on an island, you feel, around here anyway. And I just think what you're doing is really beautiful. So thank you for doing it.
Oh, that's so nice. And I think that's why, to clarify, Landon is not a stalker, but when you do run into somebody that you think might be like-minded or might be a friend, we're highly motivated to try to connect with people, and maybe way out of your comfort zone like that, You
all follow your gut instinct. And honestly, I'm so grateful that you reached out to me because it was at a time when I was like all alone in this journey. And now I feel like I have this whole community.
No, it's super fun. You do. And there's all kinds of things going on that I'm always going to text you about. And when you can't do them, who cares? And when you can, great. But I'm always going to let you know.
Thank you.
Because I know where you live, and I live just a few miles away, so I get it.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, we are very reluctantly signing off because I think we could talk forever, but I think Landon will have to have Monique back on again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it'll be fun. So thank you everybody for watching, and please like and subscribe and comment and tell us about your journey, and tell us if you're doing anything special with your kids. We heard so much tonight about what Monique was doing, and just, I hope, gave you so many good ideas. There's so much creativity out there on the other side, and so much positive light and joy and moving forward. So, all right, everybody, good night from Mormonish. Thank you. Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Mormonish. We really appreciate our listeners and would love to hear from you if you have a story you'd like to share. You can email us at mormonishpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and on our website, mormonishpodcast.org. And don't forget to look for us on YouTube and like and subscribe. Keep joyful, everybody.